Welcome to the May 25th, 2017 episode of Reactive Consciousness, our in-depth podcast about what happened this week in pop culture. I am your host, VyseTheBold, and this is...
Lotus Prince.
And I'm PyroJackFrost.
Well, in our first segment here, I wanted to take some time here to talk about an event that we all went to.
Yes.
This weekend. So this past weekend on Saturday was actually a very much a Corrective Consciousness put together in some sense of the word, and that pretty much all of the guest hosts and hosts were there, save Stephanie. Basically one of those events that encompassed all of our friends, and it was a really good time. So
yeah, it was cool because it was on a yacht. This is my first yacht wedding.
Yeah. One of our tangential members, Perry, he and his and another one of our friends, Zuzu, got married. So they've been together for a really long time, like 8 years or so.
7 or 8, yes.
Yeah. And they got married, and they had a wonderful, awesome time. A wonderful, awesome ceremony. It was really cool.
I have to say, it was very much a wedding I could see them having. Yeah. Just because of the kind of music that was playing, the kind of things that happened, the food that was there, etc.
I have to give them points in that they did it the way they would have wanted it to
yes,
be,
absolutely.
Rather than caving to pressure of societal norms or caving to pressure of what other people may have wanted. They did exactly what made them happy.
And that's
important.
One thing that I don't want to say annoys me, but like when eventually I get married, let's say, I don't want to do what everyone else does because I'm going to feel like pressure to be a little bit different than them. Whereas why don't I just do what I want to do, what would make me happy? I mean, it is supposed to be my day, isn't it?
Yeah. I had a friend of mine from Hardcore Gaming 101 back in the day when he got married to his wife. Their first dance was really cool because they had bonded, him and his wife had bonded. This was Joe Steele from there. From anybody who knows my podcast work from back then, I doubt it. But their first dance, they had originally bonded in college over DDR. So their first dance was a DDR. Was a song.
That's
from
awesome.
DDR.
Did they do the dances? The dance steps too?
Well, no. They put down the pads and put it on a projector. Like,
kind of amazing.
It was a literal first dance to DDR. Like it while playing DDR. It was really cool and really sweet. And Perry and ZZ are not very religious. Aren't religious people at all. And they had a non-religious wedding, which and a very personal ceremony, but a one that wasn't overblown either. It was they said what they wanted to say, and then they wanted to have a party.
And speaking of which, you know what I particularly enjoyed, because you do not always see this at weddings, was that both of them actually had time to enjoy their own wedding, and also they were going around and chatting it up with relatives and friends, but what I noticed was that they were still themselves. They weren't all like, oh geez, we're having a wedding. They really seemed laid back. It was like we were hanging out with them under any other occasion, except that there just happened to be a party all around them for them.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that when I talked to them or saw them, they just seemed themselves.
Yeah, like they were
like
wearing their wedding apparel, but like it was
a normal party.
Yeah,
and their family
talking
was there,
with them was like any other day, which is great.
I also thought it was really great that it seemed like they didn't have an overabundance of people there. They had like the essential people, in their lives. You know, it wasn't a small party per se, but compared to a lot of weddings I've been to, you know, weddings usually have tons of people.
Yeah, you don't even know half of the people on your own side.
like
that's
cousins
one thing,
and cousins of cousins and all kinds of stuff.
One good thing that it was like that I was thinking that I was on a yacht is you have limited space. I mean, granted, when you have a wedding in like a chapel or whatever else, you still have limited space, but you can definitely fit more people in those events. And I mean, I love all my family, but I feel like a smaller event is usually better, because then you really have to think about who do you even want here.
Yeah.
Not like I'm inviting my third cousin because they're family. I'm not inviting my third cousin because they don't. I'm not as close to them.
Well, yeah, you don't need like political, you know, like drama with like, oh, but I would be expected to invite such and such a person, and like we'll see how it is when we're here. The fact that everyone who was there was someone they wanted there meant that, like, you know, every once in a while you look up online and you see some wedding horror story or whatever, but like there wasn't even room for that here. It was like the people who were here liked each other and we had a good time in the end.
Yeah, I also particularly like that, you know, this was a kind of a funny aside, but, you know, this was the first like event like this that I had taken my girlfriend to. And I got to introduce her to everybody from our group of friends, from this particular group of friends. She hadn't met anybody yet. She knew us because she listens to the podcast occasionally.
Oh, that's right.
And so she did know you guys from your voices, but never had met you in person, you know, and interacted with you. What was cool here is...
Were we as cool in person as we were on the podcast?
Oh, she loved you. She loved you guys.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing I noticed. I didn't know she listened to the podcast. So, like, when I walked up to you guys, you were like the first thing you said was, "Oh, this is Lotus Prince." I'm like not Justin.
You
like,
thought I was making fun of you, but that's how she knows you.
No, I thought you were referring to me like by my I was like by my my YouTube. I'm like, really? Like, all right.
Yeah. No, that's how she actually had been introduced to you.
That's pretty funny.
Which is hilarious. And so she had listened to the episode that I was talking about how much fun it was to play Mario Kart with her, and it was very true. And I had told her, I had talked about her on the podcast because, you know, she's a big part of my life, and she wanted to listen to what I had to say because, you know, she wanted to hear nice things, right? And so she's getting to know you guys, and so, you know, lo and behold, you know, I've had a couple and I've been sitting at the table, and then all of a sudden I let out a Colossus roar, for the Magfest Colossus roar, and she just looks at me like, what have you done? This is a wedding. What the hell? And it was just like one of those things, like, and she also doesn't know how I interact in groups, or our group in particular, you know, quite well yet, you know. She's still getting used to me in that aspect. She knows me one-on-one, of course, but she in group situations she doesn't know me as well. And then she looks at me and then hears, you know, we hear another Colossus roar off in the distance, and it's Perry, who's the groom, who's doing it right back at me.
Despite that I know he enjoys that, I really still did not expect that.
And he's laughing his ass off while he's doing it, and Jen just looks over there like perplexed. And I was like, see, it was okay.
What universe is this?
and she's just like,
this is the
amazing.
worst timeline.
No, she's like, this is amazing. Like, you know what you're allowed to do here, because, like, you know, we were so laid back, and, you know, ZZ was having such a good time on the dance floor, and like lining up against everybody and having a good time. It was so much fun.
And that's the thing, that this calls right back to what we were saying at the beginning, was that this wasn't their wedding as was hosted by their parents. Like, this is their wedding. Like,
and their parents were invited.
That's the whole thing. Like, my brother did this. My brother and his wife, they did the same thing with their wedding. This is our wedding, and we are going to make damn sure that we're able to actually enjoy our own wedding and not be like, oh, but you have to change into another dress, and oh, you'd better make sure that you're over here doing this, that, and the other thing. It's like, no, this is a freaking party that I invited myself to. Like, actually...
Yeah, and
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
No, finish what you were going to say.
The last thing I was going to say in this vein, and this really cracked me up because I wasn't there to see it, but Perry had said that before everything really got started, he was over by some of the hors d'oeuvres and stuff when they were still wrapped up in plastic. And he was, like, in any other situation, don't be an asshole. You're not going to, like, you can't take the food until it's ready. But Perry was like, well, wait a minute. I paid for this stuff. I can do what I want, and he did. And he told me about that later, and it was hilarious.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, that's how I feel. I haven't been to many weddings, let's say, where I saw a lot that was going in the background, let's say. Sure. But when decisions are made by your family, it kind of takes the personality away from it. Let's say.
Yeah, and in a way, the focus away from the people you're supposed to be there for.
Yeah, and that the whole thinking about it is why don't I host a party that's about me and this situation? Obviously, I'm going to change some things because of the kind of party it is.
It's a little
but in the
formal.
end, it's a party.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I also like that Perry also made a signature cocktail. Like, he's a bartender.
Yeah.
And he wanted to create something that everybody else could enjoy. So he came up with a really special gin and tonic, made his own tonic water to go with it, and told the bartender how to make it. I was there when he was telling the bartender how to make it. So that it was really neat, and I'm actually kind of sad because I really like the cocktail, and I'm not going to get a chance to drink it on a regular basis.
I guess you're just going to have to go to the bar Perry works at in New York.
But he made that stuff specifically for this,
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah, you can't buy that stuff off the shelf.
And by the way, this is a little bit off tangent. I'm sorry, Pyro. This will just be a second, but this is just a little bit of a tangent. But because Perry's a bartender, you were there for it. I wasn't, but it must be cool even for the bartender at his wedding, because how
to
often
get schooled by the groom?
Well, not even to get schooled, but how often do you get to talk shop? You don't have a customer usually tell you precisely how to make a drink. That must have been kind of interesting and even possibly entertaining for the bartender herself.
Yeah, and I was actually talking to Perry, and he mentioned that everything about the wedding was part of a package, let's say, that he could make a few choices, and he said that everything else he was hands off except for the bar.
Yeah.
And I'm not much of a drinker, but I actually really enjoyed it. It was I was mentioning to Vice, actually, I believe, at the wedding, that I don't really like the taste of hard liquor that much, but whenever you can kind of drown it out with other tastes, I like those drinks, and this was actually really good. It was a little bitter, but it was still pretty good, and I could not taste the gin that much.
It had a very complex flavor profile, which I would expect from one of Perry's creations, because he puts a lot of thought into things.
Yeah, he's a real he doesn't just work at a bar. He's seriously a connoisseur. I remember at one Otakon we went to, I was not anywhere near him for this, but he had told me that he was talking to a bartender somewhere around the event. You can't do that in the con, but he was talking to some bartender somewhere at a bar, and the guy was giving him samples of his drinks, and Perry was able to identify not only what the ingredients were, but how much of them there were. I think of a whole list of ingredients. I think he was off by one ingredient by he said it was a full teaspoon and it was half or something, but otherwise he was spot on. He really knows what he's doing.
So I like how Perry was just married, and now our whole Reactive Consciousness is going to be about him.
Yeah.
It's our wedding present to him.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And my probably my favorite part of the night, other than being able to, this was also monumental in my relationship, because I got to not only introduce my girlfriend to you guys, and she means a lot to me. She's not just a girlfriend. I love her a lot at this point, and I've really gotten to know her well in the past few months. She's a big part of my life now. this was like the first time we got a chance to do a slow dance, and it meant a lot to her. So like not only was the event momentous to my friends, but it was momentous to me and my relationship. We also got some really nice photos, and we also went by the Statue of Liberty, which was awesome.
That was gorgeous.
That was really cool.
Yeah, because we were for context, we were close enough to it that it actually looked large. You know, it's not like we were on the coast and it was way off. Like, it was really big where we were, and it was at night, so it was all lit up. It looked beautiful.
Yeah, it was really nice.
It was pretty funny. Like, when we got nearby, I went back into the main part of the boat, and I was like, Lotus, you're missing it. You're missing the first level of Deus Ex.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, like, I immediately knew exactly what he was talking about. I don't know about everybody else, or if they did, they might have had to think about it, but I was like, oh, Liberty Island, okay. The only thing is, the real-life Statue of Liberty still has her head on her shoulders, but, you know, minor differences.
At least as of now, it does.
Well,
now, I hope it doesn't go away, because people are going to... The people who listen to the podcast are going to say, oh, Pyro must have stolen the head, because he's the one who just talked about it.
Yeah. No, in Deus Ex, the head is like...
So if I'm not here next week, you know why.
Yeah, you're Carmen Sandiegoing the Statue of Liberty's head. Great. No, but in Deus Ex, the head's on the inside of the base as, like, a museum display piece, sort of. Like, they made do with the damage. It was a clever way of handling it.
I also wanted to give a shout out to Mr. Ryu and how he showed up.
Oh my god!
I was waiting for you to bring it up.
So, let me start with this actually, because I think my first time seeing him is a lot better than all of you. So
I saw him walking across the dock, like towards the boat while I was in there. It was so
even better actually was we were driving and saw him crossing the street. So here's how it goes. We were driving, we see a bunch of people crossing the street, and we're like, oh look, hey, it's Minty Mint and Old Man Stompy, and we were like honking at them, and then
I didn't realize
one of the people in the car says, is that a pillow? and I turn around, I'm like, yep, Daryl brought his Miku pillow.
Yeah, it was super funny because he was, like, on one hand he was saying, like, well, it's stupid to do this, but on the other hand he was like, this is, like, I only get to do this today. This is my chance, so I'm either going to take it or I'm not. So he brought
with these people, yes.
Yeah, with this. So he brought his Hatsune Miku body pillow and was just making, like, he was just intentionally being, like, goofy with it. Just, like, but here's my favorite part, and this is by far and beyond my favorite part. Nobody, not even the staff, questioned it. No one. Everyone was like, oh, okay, look at that. And, like, so, even the photographers were like, oh, man, can I get a close-up? Like, at one point, like, not a single person was like, that's weird. No stares.
Even the normies outside of our friends group
stairs
took
or
it for
anything.
granted.
I could not believe it. It was like the freaking Twilight Zone.
And another thing is that I noticed is how long Perry's mother has known him, because I heard her say, did you see the body pillow? That's awesome.
Oh, she said that?
That's not one of us. Like, she loved it.
Yeah.
And the same thing goes for Luminaire's dad. He knows how it works.
Yes.
It was so funny because, you know, Jen, my girlfriend, she doesn't know that about Daryl. Like, doesn't know how much he loves, like, you know, anime girls and
especially Miku.
Well, no, it's Miku. Yeah.
Well, he likes other cute anime girls too. He has, like, you know, plenty of, you know, figures and stuff like that. Yeah. Right. So, but Hatsune Miku in particular, and she doesn't know about Hatsune Miku. You know, it's not something that she knows much about, or even if she does, she knows, like, very little. And,
it's not exactly mainstream in America. Like, it's she's getting an audience. She's, like, on PS3 games and stuff, but it's not really, like, in Japan it's freaking gigantic. But in America, like, it's like JoJo. It's, like, starting to creep up a little bit. Sure.
I mean, she was on David Letterman before he...
Yeah, that's hysterical. Yeah, Letterman has hosted, I think, the Gorillaz and Miku, so both holographic musicians.
But having said that, when you guys were walking towards the boat. You were walking towards us as well because we were looking like right at you guys, and I was like, hey, take a look. It's all of our friends from the podcast. It was like pointing you out, and she's just like, is that a pillow?
It is.
and I was like, yep, he brought his date, and she's just like, this is amazing. I'm on board.
Yeah.
Actually,
he was being facetious, but it was great because when we got out of the car, actually even also on the boat, both Perry and Old Man Stompy were like, no, Old Man Stompy was like, is that your +1? And Perry was like, I love your +1. Like, it was great.
Yeah, I actually told Mr. Ryu, too, that little did he know, a couple days before the wedding, some people canceled for whatever reason. So So Juju actually invited some more people. I told Mr. Ryu that if he told them just a few days earlier that he was going to bring Miku as his +1, I'm pretty sure they would have given her a seat.
Yeah, if Perry had a hand in making the name tags, it definitely would have happened. It would have been amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and what was so fun about this was that, my girlfriend was totally on board, and she's just like, I'm so glad that you guys have an environment where, Mr. Ryu can bring this and be himself.
Yeah.
At an
by the way,
like
really funny thing. He drove me to the wedding. What was funny, it was like a visual gag for me, but when I got to the car to ride shotgun, I saw that,
Was she buckled in?
Yes. Pillow was in the backseat, bickled. And it was funny because Luminaire pointed out something that would have made things even funnier, which Mr. Ryu did not do. But he should have totally had her riding shotgun and had me ride in the backseat. It would have been freaking. It's one of those things where I want to sit in the front, but you know how some things are you realize it's funny the next day. No, that's something I would have realized. I'd rather sit in the front, but this is funny now. It's just he's actually going through with it, but didn't happen. But it was still funny.
But I want to say this is my first wedding with friends. I would have to say that one of my friends is getting married that I went to. Most of the other weddings I've been to have been family. It could just be because that is the case, but also this is the first case where I feel like the wedding was a party.
Yeah,
and I didn't get bored, let's say, and not that anything bad about my family. It could just be the traditional weddings are boring. Going to the chapel and sitting through all that stuff, and then going to have dinner, and that always goes the same way. I don't have people that I can talk about anything except my family, and obviously I don't talk to them about the same things that I talk to all of you about.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
So an hour in, I'm like, all right, cool, the food's done, I'll go dance, but I'm done, let's say.
Yeah.
And I could dance for a long time. There's nothing wrong with that. I could probably dance for a few hours if I wanted to, but I'm not doing anything more than just eating and dancing and talking to my immediate family. Whereas this was the first wedding I went to with friends where basically the whole time I had stuff to do. And I actually feel like even though it was late at night, and obviously I was getting tired when it was getting to the end, but I feel like if the wedding was another 4 hours, I wouldn't have minded.
I also kind of liked that it had a natural beginning and end. You know what I mean? There's no way you could have stayed longer. You know what I mean?
Because when the boat docks, you're done.
Yeah.
That was the thing. The wedding really kicked off when we went on the boat, and we drove, sailed around for a few hours, came back, time to go home. That really is a sail.
We didn't sail either.
That's true. There was no sail. we boated out. Yeah, there we go.
The other thing I want to say too is personally, I don't know if either of you know this, but I get motion sickness a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I get worse as I'm getting older. So I took some medication, but I feel like the boat was pretty smooth. Other than there was some few heavy rockings going on.
There was a little bit, yeah.
But otherwise, I felt fine. I mean, I could have just been the medication for all I know. But at the same time, I drank a little bit, and that didn't feel nauseous at all. It's just weird going to the bathroom.
Actually, speaking of motion sickness, I mean, I almost never go on boats. I think I've been on a boat 2 or 3 times in my life. The last time I remember, I was a really little kid, and that was a rocky trip, and I did get motion sickness. I didn't throw up or anything, but I really was okay, I'm sitting down and staring at a particular place on the floor for a while. On this boat, there were only 1 or 2 times where I started to feel a little whoa, but one thing I discovered that I really didn't expect is that looking down actually made things worse. I felt that, and even sitting down, probably not a good idea. I felt that standing and looking out, and also trying to maintain my balance, I feel helped a lot.
So a few things I think I want to say about this. One is, I mean, probably no, but our ears are kind of
Yeah.
center ourselves and help us balance. So if you look down, that gets off.
Okay.
Also, when you get dizzy, you should look at a stationary point, and the floor is not stationary
That's
because
that's
you're
the big
moving with it.
mistake.
You're like moving around away
It's
from it.
just like
So
reading in the car. Like you can't do it.
yeah, and I want to say too, the first time I found out that I was got seasick could have not been because of the boat. So I went on a fishing boat with my family, and the mixture of the rocking plus the fishy smell did
Yeah.
not. I did not make it to the edge of the boat. I'll say that.
Oh
And
wow.
then I laid down the rest. I had to lay down the rest of the boat ride because I was not doing well at all.
And similarly, another time, this isn't seasickness. It was just standard. It was car sickness, except on a bus. The first time we went to PAX East, we went by bus from New York City to Boston. And I don't know what it was. I don't tend to get car sick. Like, I only ever got a little nauseous if I ever read in the car, and I learned not to do that. But on the bus, maybe it's just because the trip was so long, I eventually started to feel it a little bit. And again, it didn't come to me throwing up at all, but I was starting to feel like, okay, like I'm trapped on this bus for like 2.5 more hours.
Mm-hmm.
But we got to a rest stop. You know, people got off and used the bathroom or ate or drank or whatever. But again, I did not throw up, but like a guy came back with like hamburgers or whatever. Wow, did that not help? I was just like, this is not going to go well for me. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. So I mean, the other thing I know we wanted to talk about was Samurai Jack. I know I don't watch Samurai Jack,
the
but
series
it ended
concluded. Yeah,
this week, right?
Yeah, it was 10 episodes, season 4, and I really, really, really liked the ending. You know, I've talked about episodes, I want to say maybe 2 and 3 of Samurai Jack's final season. Right, the last time I think I brought it up. Oh, no, I mentioned the clip show episode. Yeah, so like one of the assassins trying to kill Jack was kind of converted to the light side with this like clip show episode where Jack disappeared and she was looking for him at this point on sort of a friendly basis. Like, I gotta find this guy. And like she's running into like everybody from the earlier seasons from over a decade ago where they're like, oh, we still remember the samurai even though it's 50 years later. He helped our civilization and he helped this person. And like he just spreads good all over the place. And she's like, wow, like maybe he really is like, I figured maybe he's not an asshole because, you know, he could have killed me and didn't, but like, wow, he's really a good guy. Episode 8 was where the series started to lose me a little bit, because there was a romantic subplot with this character, and there's nothing wrong with the existence of romantic subplots, but my problem was that all of a sudden it got into like high school romantic tension where like, you know, oh, you're both leaning against something and you accidentally both touch hands and you're like, oh my god, sorry. I'm like, really? We're doing
was
this?
there
Samurai
romantic-
Jack is rushing with a piece of toast in his mouth, and then like
That's
he
not
trips
romantic
over
subplot.
and-
That's stupid anime tropes. but like it's like awkward. Like, oh gee, sorry. Like, oh, touching hands. Oh, awkward. And I'm like, dude, you are like 70 years old, and you spent like 50 of those years wandering the wastelands, killing bad guys. Like, this is really we're doing the high school.
Was there a romantic subplot in the original seasons?
Not that I'm aware of, because like everyone he met was someone he had to save or like a robot. Like the series had an overarching plot. You know, you gotta stop Baku, but it was mostly episodic. Season 4 was like actually a continual
I wonder
series.
I wonder if this is because of the usual. So I wonder if this was put in there because of them trying to get viewers, or if this was
But this was episode 8
intentional
of 10,
to grow. Yeah. So like my example is the Flash and Green Arrow or Arrow, let's say on CW. They have some really stupid drama. Like the show itself is great. Shows themselves are usually not that bad, let's say, but the drama and the romantic interest stuff is stupid as shit. And I feel like they just put that in there because they're trying to get female viewers because they find that the only thing
that's why women watch
that's
comic
what I'm
book
saying.
shows.
The only thing that female viewers will watch it for is for the romantic interest, where that's not the case most of the time. So I'm wondering if they did that in Samurai Jack for the same reason.
Yeah, it goes back to Young Justice season 3 or whatever it was, where it's like they didn't have enough of a male demographic, so they stopped the show. It's like but you have a demographic. Like,
yeah.
like women are interested in more things than like young adult romantic fiction section. But
it's the same thing that annoys me whenever I go to like toy aisles, and it's like, here's the girl toys, here's the boy toys.
Pink.
Who cares?
It's still all pink. But I will say this: you could argue that after like this long in the show and this long in real life between seasons, wouldn't it be nice if Jack had some happiness in that regard? I guess you could go there. It just like with this assassin. Ashi, with this character, there was definitely bonding in terms of, like, I'm not such a bad guy, and then she's going along traveling with him, and she's warming to him, but it didn't come off in a romantic sense at all. And episode 8 just pushed it. So, like, it wasn't a bad episode, but I was kind of like, why is this here? And even if it is here, why is it being done so quickly? Now, that said, episode 9... turn that shit around real fast. And I don't mean in terms of they broke up or anything, but the payoff they gave it, not like a romantic payoff, but what they did with the relationship was really clever, because the bad guy, the musical assassin I mentioned at this point, I guess freaking 9 weeks ago, the musical robot assassin that Jack destroyed turned out not to have been completely destroyed, and he existed just as a head, and he's trying to, like, make his way back to Aku, because the first thing the assassin noticed when he was getting ready to fight Jack is that Jack didn't have a sword. So he's like, whoa! So he's like, if I kill Jack now, so much the better. But if I don't, the reason Aku's been just, like, gone from the face of the earth for 5 decades is that he didn't want to deal with Jack's sword. So he's like, I gotta go back to Aku and tell him that Jack doesn't have his sword. He's gonna be overjoyed. So there are like 3 episodes with this character, and 2 of them are about him trying to get back to Aku and let him know Jack doesn't have the sword. The funny thing is, though, in episode 7, Jack got the sword back, but this is after the assassin had already left to go back to Aku. So he finally tells Aku that Jack's missing his sword, and Aku's like, You kidding me? Like, don't fuck with me. Like, I've been hiding for 5 decades. Like, do you really, really mean this? Because I don't want to go out if you don't really mean this. And the assassin's like, oh, I swear, I bet my life on it. Like, I saw him. So Aku's like, okay, oh my god. So the episode concludes with Jack and Ashi walking through the wasteland. And keep in mind, Jack's fought Aku a whole bunch of times, but Aku's appearance in Season 4 has been really minimal. Like, really minimal. You've seen him doing his own thing with a couple of his goons a couple times, but he's never even met Jack in Season 4, until 9 weeks in. So the episode has this really cool conclusion where, like, Jack and Ashi are walking through, and all of a sudden you just hear, like, Samurai Jack! And you're like, oh shit, it's here! And, like, Aku has this big dramatic entrance and everything, and he's like, it's been long. Far too long. However, I finally came out because... And the assassin guy comes out, and he's like, because Samurai Jack doesn't have his sword! And then Jack just draws the sword, and Aku just is like, what... And he just immediately kills the assassin, and he's like, well, it's been fun, I'm gonna go. And he actually gets ready to leave, like, immediately. But then he notices something really interesting, where the woman who's with Jack, I had mentioned she was an assassin for Aku with, like, 6 other people. What I did not mention is that, and they showed this way back in episode 2, but it only clicks for Aku now, is that he smells some of himself on her, and he's like, why would this be? I've never reproduced with anyone, although... And he remembers this cult worshipping him, and Aku's like, in the flashback, he showed up to the cult, and he's like, you guys are pretty cool, and he puts a little bit of his essence into a goblet, and a woman drinks it, and then later gives birth to 7 children who are, like, called the daughters of Aku, and they kind of literally are. So at that point, Jack, or not Jack, at that point Aku, like, turns the woman into a sort of, like, mini version of himself, and he's like, here, you go fight Jack. That way, Jack will probably die, and I don't have to deal with the sword. Yes. So, like, episode 9 concludes that way, and episode 10, I don't want to say what happens in episode 10 yet, because it's, like, it only recently aired, but the payoff was freaking great, because you do get your final encounter, you do get payoff for a lot of the setup from characters in the clip show. Like, a lot of them try fighting Aku, even though you could punch him in the face, but like you can't destroy his matter. You know, you can't like you can't like actually cause real damage. You could punch him and make him go like, ah, Jesus, but like it's impossible to actually kill him. And there are lots of callbacks for people from the older series, and it was really cool to see. And maybe I'll talk more about this later, but it was like, I will say the final encounter was fun, and the way the series ultimately concluded was better handled than what I thought, because I thought this could only go so many ways. Like, I was saying, like, you know, are they going to contrive a way for Jack to go back to the past? That would be nice for Jack, although, it would feel contrived. Are they going to stay in the future, so the past is entirely screwed, but we have new hope for the future? You could go that way, too. I will say, the way they handled it, and I won't say how they did, but the way they handled it subverted my expectations, but in a way that, like, did not feel cheap. They were able to get a particular ending that I thought really did the series justice. Both season 4 and the first 3 seasons. Like, it was a really good ending.
Yeah, I have to say that after hearing you talk about it so much, not that I have the time, but I feel like, because I haven't watched the original Samurai Jack either, so I might try to find time to watch it. I know I watch it every now and then on Cartoon Network, but from hearing you talk about all of this, I kind of want to experience it myself.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Like, you don't need to have watched the old shows. Like, the nods they give are obvious. So if you haven't watched the show, you'll be like, oh, that's some kind of nod that I don't fully appreciate, but I see that it is a nod. Like, season 4 does stand on its own, but you get a little bit more fun in the flashback episode and the last episode if you've seen the previous stuff. Like, you know, like, the Scotsman made an appearance in episode 5. If you don't know who he is, it's kind of like, oh, it's cool to see it. Yeah, like, the Scotsman's just
you met him on the bridge. Rope bridge, right?
Yeah, and he's just as full of trash talk as he was, like, when he was a young man. It's pretty great.
That's awesome.
And you also get to see what these characters have done with their time since then, in some cases, especially the Scotsman, because he was a recurring character. This was a really, really good conclusion to the series. It was absolutely worth it. Like I mentioned, the first time it aired, I was happy that it was airing on principle, but I wasn't really invested in watching it. I was like, it's cool that it's back, but it's been too long. But then when I saw people on Twitter saying, oh, it's actually airing right now, I was like, okay, I'll watch episode 1. And then I was hooked, and I'm glad I was.
Yeah, that's my feeling with a lot of... I mean, this is happening pretty often nowadays, where they're releasing new seasons of shows, let's say, or rebooting shows that have been off air for a while. And one hand, I feel, hey, this is really neat. I mean, not that I've watched the show necessarily, but it's cool that they're continuing. On one hand, I'm like, who are they trying to pander to? Because what's their point here? And then on my third hand, I think that why not? I mean, they have the money. If it doesn't do well, it doesn't do well. But it just makes me upset because there's a show that I watched, Firefly, and this isn't a cartoon, but Firefly was one season. It was amazing. I mean, I think it just had a cult following, but that's never going to go. But another thing, actually, that I don't know if the two of you heard of, Arrested Development, season 5 is happening.
Oh,
yeah, just heard it.
I did not hear about this.
Yep.
Well, and that's the show that kickstarted Netflix's ability to produce original shows. You know, now we already take for granted, like, Daredevil on Netflix is such a good show. Like, oh man, House of Cards. But, like, why should we subscribe to Netflix online specifically? Yeah. What do they have to offer? And they hooked us with Arrested Development season 4, which was season 4 of a show we know and
that
loved.
Wasn't their first. I don't think that was the first show they produced, but they hooked a good amount of people with that.
That really wrote people in, and now,
for sure,
like, we can't imagine life without it. So now we're like all sorts of new shows on Netflix. We're like, well, I'm already paying for it, so sure, I'll take a look at Orange is the New Black and like these high quality shows like designed for
Voltron.
Netflix. Yeah, that's right.
I heard Voltron was great.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
And by the way, just to follow up on what Pyro said, like, regarding, like, oh, this happens to me too, I will say the same thing happened to me with Attack on Titan Season 2. It had been 4 years, and I was like, well, I've lost my hype. Like, I don't even care anymore. But I tuned in to Episode 1, and I'm like, well, now I'm watching this every week. So it's like the same thing. It's hooked me just as much as it did before, which I didn't think would happen. It's like it continues to be stressful and miserable, but maybe they'll get out of it the next episode, and like it just keeps me hooked. What a bleak freaking show, but that's the point.
Well, you folks have anything else to add on that note?
I mean, yeah, if you guys have anything you want to ask about Samurai Jack, go for it. Otherwise, we can move on to one more thing. Crickets. All right. So I guess
I think we could talk about our final topic here.
Yeah, the only other thing I had to bring up, and there's honestly not much of an update for this. It's the One Piece, specifically anime. Just because I freaking love One Piece, but it's come to a point where the anime was at risk of catching up to the manga. So instead of doing filler like Naruto, or instead of taking a super long hiatus like Attack on Titan, One Piece slows its pace to a crawl. So you continue...
Well,
yeah.
It depends, because I will say that One Piece has had lots of fillers. You just might not have noticed it.
But I mean, One Piece does filler, but they're usually like 3 episodes long.
No, actually, you know the arc where Luffy had a afro?
For God's sake, Foxy, the Davy back arc.
That whole thing was a filler.
Are you really?
Yes.
Well, in that case, I gotta admit, One Piece does some good filler. But like more lately though, it does tend to be like brief interludes.
The manga does hiatus a lot, so that's another reason why One Piece can not catch up as quickly. Let's say, because like he takes a break every other week, it seems sometimes.
Yeah, because like I remember, because the reason I said what I did at first was I remember the Dressrosa arc, the last big arc with Doflamingo, like the battle royale, like Rebecca's round C or round D or whatever in the giant Colosseum fight. Jesus, like that was endless. Like, I mean, it wasn't like it was 1 chapter long in the manga, but the anime made it take freaking forever. And even with the new arcs, we're dealing with Big Mom now. And so, like, we met Big Mom, and Luffy's crew is out to look for Sanji, so they're going and looking for him, and in the meantime, it's just kind of like, we're on the water looking for him. That's it. Like, nothing's actually happened. The only thing that's really happened lately was with Big Mom herself. She apparently has some affliction where, like, her thing is eating. She has some affliction where every once in a while she'll just get hit with a hunger pang for a very particular kind of food. And, oh man, you had better hope that food's around. Because I had mentioned before that a lot of the islands in her territory are food themed, where like houses are made out of chocolate that they've used sugar and stuff to solidify, so you could actually have walls made of chocolate, but you could eat them if you want. So like after several months it'll start to melt or break down, and then you got to build a new one. But like things are made out of food on her islands, right? So all of a sudden she has this nasty craving for some particular kind of sweet. And she's just like, I gotta find it. Where is it? And she goes into like a frenzy and just starts like tearing up houses and eating them. And like, and people have to run away. And like, remember how I mentioned when she had a musical number, there's like a singing sun and like a cloud, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things I'm realizing are alive around her. Like, and like her ship, for example, has this big mouth, and it just, like a dope, it just goes like ship, like as it sails, except like in Japanese. There's stuff like that going on, but like while she's, it's like a surprisingly disturbing scene. It was like a less edgy rated M version of like Sausage Party, where like little pineapples with eyes and mouths and like gingerbread men and everything are running away from Big Mom, and she's just grabbing them and dropping them into her mouth and like crunching them up, and it's like, oh my god, like it's non-violent, but it's violent. It's like, man, like I know everything's food, but like holy crap, like you're really like, these, wow, like things are like, she's killing people kind of. And like although interestingly enough, what I found was a little bit disturbing, this kind of got me a little bit, was when they finally stopped her with the dessert they needed. One person had grabbed up a bunch of little cream puff looking things that were also alive, and it was so freaky, because they throw them into her mouth and she's like, what? Wait a minute, this is it. Oh, okay. And she calms down, and you see like the cream puff faces as they're like spiraling down her throat, and they're going like, well, as long as it stops her hunger, that's what matters. And I'm like, that's depressing. Like, it's just like this really like kind of scene. It was just like I felt bad for the food she was eating. It was freaky. It was like that pig in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. That thing wanted to be eaten, but it was making Arthur uncomfortable. It was like that. Like there's like a pineapple, but it's like, no, don't eat that. Like, it's a living person, kind of. Jesus.
Its entire existence was there to be like bred to be served, and they are the waiter.
Well, I don't
love that thing.
I don't even know if that's true though. Oh, you mean in Hitchhiker?
Yeah.
Okay. Because in One Piece, I don't even know if that's true. They just happen to be living food, and they're just getting eaten. And I'm like, oh no. And it's so bad because Big Mom's own family tries stopping her to hold her off until people can make the food under normal circumstances. And anyone who's related to Big Mom is like immediately a badass. And these people are terrified. Like, and there's only one instance that Big Mom showed that she has a devil fruit power. And I don't know exactly how it works. But like one guy tries stopping her. And she's like, no, done with you. And she has a move called Life or Treat, where, like, all of a sudden, like, the background gets all gloomy and she looks freaking terrifying, and the guy just, like, freezes, and the other 3 people behind him are like, oh, shit, whatever you do, keep your cool. Like, this move relies on fear. And the guy, like, snaps and starts running away. And, like, you see all this steam coming off of him that may or may not be his soul. And Big Mom just kind of grabs it and she goes, I'll take 40 years. And just rips it out of the guy who just, like, straight up dies. Like, One Piece doesn't like killing people, but apparently this guy just died. And the other 3 people, who are also probably badasses in their own right, are just like, It's like, what are we supposed to do about this? And also, one thing I did not mention about Big Mom is that she's huge. Like, there are giants in One Piece, but there are also people who are just really big that are some reason not giants. So Big Mom's just running through town, I didn't even mention, but like a kaiju. Like, she's just stomping people and like punching downward and sending shockwave. It's just like, wow. Like, you know, normally I would say thank God she's on my side, but even when she is, sometimes she's not. Like, it's the worst. Like, she's freaking terrifying. Wow. Like, the whole big point of concern with her higher level subordinates were that she might get to the capital and start eating it. And it's like, we can't let that happen. So it was like this really scary moment. Like, it has no bearing on the Straw Hats whatsoever. It's entirely within Big Mom's own community. But you're like, oh man, don't let it happen. So it turns out that, you know, when I mentioned she was having a tea party and other people got terrified because of it, I'm starting to see why. Like, Big Mom didn't have a hunger pang for the tea party, but like, if push comes to shove, her subordinates will kill people to get what they want to satisfy Big Mom, because God help everybody if they don't. So, like, so you want to live in Big Mom's territory because she'll protect you until she becomes the enemy, and you never know when that's going to happen. Apparently, there's no way to tell. Like, it just happens. So it's awful. So it was kind of amusing to watch that episode for that reason.
That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah, she's definitely one of the 4 emperors we've kind of gotten to know a little more. Like, at this point, the one we know the least would be Kaido, the guy who just, like, lives to fight. You know,
I'm farther than you because I read the manga, and that arc gets more interesting when the Straw Hat Pirates decide to fight back, and how they fight back.
And Old Man Stompy told me the Tea Party only just started. So, like, how the hell long am I going to have to wait to even get to, like, what the series has been advertising? Like, you've got to stop the Tea Party. And it's been months. And finally, I'm on the Big Mom arc at all. And Old Man Stompy's like, oh yeah, now they're doing the Tea Party. Like, wow! Like, how long am I going to have to wait? It's going to be forever. But,
there's a lot of stuff that goes on to get everything set up.
Sure.
And there's a lot of,
it's like Don Flamingo.
To be introduced to, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's like Don Flamingo took, like, there was the Dressrosa arc, but Luffy fighting Don Flamingo, it was like 90 episodes before that happened. It was like a seventh of the series at the time. So, yeah, I will say one thing about Oda, the series creator. Man, he knows how to play the long game. I mean, again, the anime is artificially delayed, but, like, yeah, you will get what you're waiting for. The payoff is always good, but you have to wait. So of course, the waiting, while frustrating, will make me all the more hyped when the time finally comes.
Yeah, I mean, you can always read the manga.
But even with the manga, you gotta wait though. Like, I didn't know it took that long. With the anime, it's just the thing with the anime is when a chapter happens in the manga. With the anime, now I'll know. Oh, now I have a more definite timeline. Like, oh, that moment actually does occur. Okay, now I know that it will occur, so I'll wait for it. But yeah, so that's at least those were what I wanted to bring up. Was we all had our piece to say about the wedding. I had my Samurai Jack, and
that was your piece on One Piece.
I mean, you say that, but did you ever watch the 4Kids dub of One Piece?
Yes, that's what I'm referring to.
Okay, yeah. They would always on the next piece of One Piece. I actually kind of like that. As much as I hate the 4Kids dub, that was pretty clever. I like that. The next piece of One Piece. Well done. It makes sense.
So yes, you get my joke.
Yeah. Yo ho ho, we took a bite of gum gum. Boo.
And on that note, that's the show for this week.
On the next consciousness of Corrective Consciousness.
Please remember to subscribe to Corrective Consciousness's YouTube and SoundCloud pages. While there, please give us thumbs up, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. It keeps us promoting. It helps us promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement keeps the show going. And please catch us on Tuesday for our sister podcast, Corrective Consciousness, the podcast about our lives in pop culture. Finally, you can friend me as VyseTheBold, VyseTheBold, on Steam, PSN, Xbox Live, and Twitter.
And as for me, you could follow me on my YouTube page, Lotus Prince. You could follow me and more directly chat me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince, all one word. And if you would like to see some of my YouTube episodes early or get in on exclusive streams, then you can catch me at my Patreon at patreon.com/LotusPrince. Again, the Lotus Prince is all one word.
And you can look for me at PyroJackFrost or Cloudoid540 on many different social media and gaming outlets.
All right. Well, that's the show for this week, and we'll catch you on Tuesday.
Until next time, everyone.
Bye.